Hi, Clarissa from Calm Mind Psychology, back again with some more exploration into the ego. So this video I want to talk about projection because it's such a huge phenomenon that we all do and we all need to be aware of if we want to become a fully fledged integrated human being. So what is projection? Projection is the projection of material that is of the self. It's often unconscious material or stuff that's been pushed into the shadow, meaning it's not a consciously owned part of self. And by virtue of it being part of us, that has been disavowed or pushed aside or sublimated into our subconscious or out of our awareness. But because it's part of us, we see it as coming from outside in the environment and often from other people. So I'm saying outside in the environment because often we project onto they or it or institutions or authority in general or the government or something that they are doing stuff to us. And look, projection needs a valid screen. So when I'm talking, I'm not saying that there's some sort of fantasy happening. Often there's a thread of truth and reality in the actions and the behavior of the other person or thing or institution or association. But the thing is that the strength and the power of the projection comes from within. If I backtrack and just summarize how this comes to be within the formation of the ego. So going back a couple of videos ago, I explained how as an infant, as the ego forms, there is a basic split that happens amongst all of us between the good and the bad. The good self, the good other, the good experience, and the bad self, the bad other, and the bad experience. This is very general. Obviously, we know that we have experiences that we like and we want, and ones that we don't want. As we grow and develop, we become socialized and we learn what's approved of by society, our school, our teachers, and primarily our parents. Without blaming parents too much, there are essential faculties in the ego that we all have. This is going to happen. We are going to, even within our own minds, even as children, decide that we don't want to experience a certain feeling or behavior and we will push it away. So it's not just that the parents are like, no, you little girl shall not be naughty and angry. Or no, you little boys shall not be sensitive and boys don't cry. That might come from the parents. It might actually also exist in the morphic field of the culture and society. So we can experience these things as coming from many different directions without a singular point. But by and large, it's the parents that we want the love and approval from. So they're the prime initiators of the early forms of conditioning and the acceptance of certain behaviors in the child and the disapproval of certain other ones. Now, there are certain things that we just can't do socially. We have to be socialized not to pick our nose in public or show our bottom or swear or hit or punch or do any of these aggressive behaviors. This is fine. It's part of our socialization and conditioning. But there's also little nuances. So I use the example a lot because it's very easy to point it out that not so much, maybe so much anymore, but overall, boys still have this boys don't cry sort of conditioning that happens to them. And that might be okay in the boys' world as they're growing up, but there are certain boys that are more sensitive and more feeling and more emotive. So for them, the whole directive not to cry is more difficult. The basic thing that's important to bring up is that not all things that are disavowed are necessarily negative or bad. So we are all equipped with the complete spectrum of human emotion and behavior, from the best, most altruistic, empathic behavior to the most evil, cruel behavior. Toddlers will show empathy and kindness and patting and soothing, and they'll also go and destroy something in a fit of rage. But that's toddlers. As we get older, these behaviors are still essentially part of our emotional framework. But there are certain behaviors that are prized in certain families and societies and certain ones that are not. And then we have our individual temperament. So we may have a temperament that is prone towards extra sensitivity, but we may be born to parents that are quite functional and pragmatic and no fuss kind of people. So the sensitivity in the child is like, oh, I don't know what to do with that. So the child learns this somehow through direct or overt or underlying ways that its sensitivity is not welcome. And so the sensitivity gets disavowed and pushed aside. And the bravery or the outgoingness is kind of tried to be fostered, right? It's agreed, it's approved of. So we learn the behaviors and traits and kinds of things that are approved of, and we identify with them and we want to feel more of them and display more of them. Meanwhile, there's a whole spectrum of our behaviors and thoughts, feelings, desires, beliefs, ways of being that have to be pushed aside and pushed down because they were simply not acceptable and they were not going to get us love, approval, or acceptance in our family and in our social circle, our society that we were born into, includes school, extended family, etc. So these qualities and behaviors that we disavow by conditioning, by learning. It's not like we consciously go, oh, I shan't do that anymore, although that does happen, but they are pushed down. So I'll use the example of sensitivity in a male. Many boys, I've got boys that can be very sensitive. It's a beautiful thing, but it's not something that the peer group is going to accept. And fathers or people are very prone to sort of like, boys don't cry, you can't be so sensitive, stop that. So the boy learns to not be so sensitive, to push down his feeling, caring side. And this, we can see how this can happen in many different forms and shapes. What happens, though, is that sensitivity still remains. But what is done with it is it gets projected out onto the environment. So it's seen as, oh, she's so sensitive, or people are so sensitive, and why do they have to make such a fuss about things? And that feeling that is within that individual and is denied or pushed into the shadow and disavowed gets projected out. It's just what happens. And it'll be a situation or a person that will provoke that feeling from the person, which cannot be owned within the individual. So it's seen as coming from outside. A better example would be anger. So as I've said a few times, it's common for women to be socialized. Overall, not so much as bad these days as it was maybe when I was growing up, but still happens in many cultures that women, it's not acceptable for them to be angry or assertive or aggressive. Now, we all have a different range of emotional capacities that are innate to us. So if there is a female that has a high amount of aggressiveness, which isn't always a bad thing. I think aggression is a healthy reaching out into the environment. But by the family of origin that she grew up in, it's like, no, you may not be angry. So she has to stuff her anger down and put it into the background and identify with being a calm, tolerant, peaceful, good girl who hardly ever gets angry. But she has anger. We all have anger. We all have aggression. We all have assertiveness in our human framework as part of being a human. So the anger is pushed away. What happens? She ends up in situations with people who are angry, people who display aggression that is threatening to her because she's not in ownership of her own aggressive faculties. And so the feeling, and the other way that this can happen is, say, it's not like it happens every day, all day. It's like something will happen to trigger anger. Say there's a disagreement with a partner, and because she can't be in ownership of her anger because it's been conditioned out of her, it's in her shadow, it's disavowed, it's seen as coming from the other. Why are you angry? Why are you always so angry at me? What did I do? The partner might go, I'm not angry, I'm just tired. No, you're angry at me. But the truth is, she's angry because he was meant to pick something up and he didn't, and he let her down again. So she's angry, but she can't experience it. So she projects it and sees it as coming back at her from the other. So when we are working on emotional healing, when we're working on personal growth and development, projection is one of the biggest areas of work for the individual, because there is no way that we were brought up by enlightened, loving, accepting of everything parents or world. There are certain social conditions that will accept certain behaviors in certain families and not others. So there's always stuff that we have to push aside and disown in ourselves. And there are always things that we find triggering in the environment and other people that arises every now and then and seems to hit us smack in the face. And it's something that we are particularly loathsome about. That's how we know it's projection. It really irks us. An example is I remember working with someone, and she would see bitches everywhere. Like her friends would turn into being bitchy or something. And this particular person was sweet. She was so loving and kind and sweet. Yes, she got taken advantage of a lot. Yes, she was too nice. She actually needed to be able to access her own bitchy energy, but she couldn't. So what it would happen was, when she was feeling particularly irked or nasty or activated, she would only see it in the other. Now, I know your pennies dropping for you, thinking, I can think of so many people that I know of that do the projection. Okay, that's great, but the only person you need to be aware of who's projecting is yourself. And this is the trickery of projection, because once we get on this journey of personal growth and we're like, oh, I've been projecting my anger, my bitchiness, my resentment, my kindness, my softness. I've been projecting my vulnerability onto other people that I think are soft and weak, etc. There's many, many, many different examples I can give you. And then we're like, I'm going to own back my projection. That is great. Please do own it back. You're going to see it in many different layers, shapes, and forms. But what can happen is we do the thing where it's like, okay, I've owned back my projection, now you own back yours. Okay, well that's a sort of a trade-off that isn't really in service of your personal growth. It's done as an ego payoff. So if you really want to own back your projection, you own back your projection. You see the things that irk you, that trigger you, that bother you, and you ask the question, how am I like that? Or how do I need to be like that? How do I need to be more assertive or aggressive? If I'm seeing my partner is angry at me, how am I angry? Like, where is the anger really in this room? Is it really with them if they're saying it's not, or is it me? If I see everyone as if you see everyone as soft and weak and a pushover, then how do you need to soften up a little bit? What is it about that you particularly don't like? Where did you learn that? These are all really good questions to ask yourself in service of your own personal growth. Now, I've only just skimmed the surface on projection, but I think I've given the broad brushstroke. You have something within you, the other person or thing, and the environment is the screen. Your stuff comes out, hits it, comes back at you. That is projection, and it comes back at you and it hurts, meaning it gets you. It's like not everything is that activating or triggering to you unless it's something that's in you that you need to bring into your own awareness. Thank you for listening. I'll be talking more on the ego in future videos and in past ones. So if you care to stay on for the playlist or tune back in another time, appreciate your being here.